Welcome to the Grace City Eugene podcast. We exist to help every person in our sphere of influence to encounter Christ, experience biblical community, and extend God's kingdom. You can learn more about us at gracecityeugene.com. Here's the podcast.
Hey family, welcome to the podcast today. I am Pastor Chris and I'm here with Pastor David Hermes for this month's edition of Meet the Family. Pastor David Hermes is coming at us from our brand new church plant in Denver, Colorado. And over the last couple of years, him and I have got to develop just an amazing friendship, in my opinion at least. I pray it's the same for him. And a cool thing about this is Pastor David is coming out here to Eugene in a couple of weeks to minister to us. And so we thought it was an amazing opportunity for him to be the one that we get to know through this podcast this week. If you haven't tuned in to Meet the Family before, this is our opportunity to help you meet more folks in our Every Nation family, pastors, leaders from around the nation, and eventually around the world. So, Pastor David, thank you for being with us here today.
Man, it's so great to be with you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's start out and let's just hear about your family. Tell us about wife, kids, where you live, all that fun stuff.
Absolutely. So yeah, we moved to Denver, Colorado in summer 2019 to establish Hope Valley Church. I have been married to Megan for 17 years. So our marriage is almost old enough to vote. So we're pretty excited about that. We met in the church youth group, actually, at Grace Covenant Church, Pastor Brett Fuller's, under Pastor Brett Fuller's leadership and Pastor Jim Critcher. But we met in the youth group. It was not a love at first sight story. That's probably for another time. But we had not so high thoughts of one another, but grew in love. Ended up getting married over Thanksgiving break in our sophomore year, junior year of high school. Of college, rather, not high school. That'd be crazy. It's not that kind
East
of
Coast life is different, man.
we weren't in that part of Virginia. We were in Northern Virginia, where you got to be a little older. But married 17 years. We have four kids, aged 16 down to 8, and so. It's been a wild ride moving and experiencing COVID and all of that related stuff. I'm in my closet today because we've got a snow day slash there aren't enough teachers in the schools right now because everybody's got COVID. So they punted on school today. So I'm back in the closet I spent most of COVID in. So, yeah.
It's your little makeshift recording meeting area.
It is.
We've had many Zoom calls with you in there.
always hiding in here. It's my best shot at a quiet conversation.
Right. Hey, desperate times require desperate measures. So did you grow up in Virginia? Tell us about your life growing up. Have you always been out there until recently?
Yeah. So my dad and mom raised me in a Christian home, and church planting has always kind of been a part of our life. They got to know each other in Manhattan, Kansas, but when they moved, and they moved with a church planting movement to Kansas City. That's where I was born, Kansas City, Kansas. They went with a church plant to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and then they went on a church plant from there to Northern Virginia. And so church planting, as a kid, I was a part of church plants. My dad was just a businessman and a sound engineer for every church he's ever been at. So he, kind of first guy in, last guy out, dragging me along and teaching me AVL, and that's where I kind of cut my teeth in ministry and service. And then in 1990, roughly 1994, I think. Our church plant merged with Pastor Brett's church, and that's how I kind of got grafted into the Every Nation family. And so I was a part of a small church that merged into a slightly bigger and growing church, and man, never looked back. And so my wife, however, grew up in Fairfax County, and so this move to Denver was her first move away from home. We both went to George Mason University together so that we could stay close to the church. We were interning with the youth ministry and then helping establish a new campus ministry as students there. And yeah, so it's kind of, I've been a lot of places. Northern Virginia is more home than Texas or Kansas City, but man, I love the city of Denver, and this is really it's home for us now, and it's exciting to be here.
That's awesome. Yeah, so you've been there for how long now? Is it just over 2
Gosh,
years?
2.5 years.
2.5.
Two and a half years. Yeah.
That had to be a big change, like going East Coast to Denver. And one thing that, as I've just reflected on you guys being kind of the Lone Rangers out there in Colorado's East Coast, I didn't realize that being from Oregon and always living out here, but everything's so condensed. There are so many big cities so close, which means there's so many churches within our church family, right? That are
Yes.
close. Now, you guys, like, what's the closest Every Nation church to you guys now? Is it New Mexico or Vegas?
Albuquerque. Yeah.
That's
Albuquerque.
a long way.
And he's a great man, but we are so far away.
Yeah.
We don't really see each other. So most of my relationship has been on Zoom, the various streaming platforms, and then the pastor clusters have meant the world to me, which is how we got to know each other. And so, I mean, as much as we're very far from geographically from the rest of the Every Nation family, we've managed to build relationally close, and like, yeah. So it's just an absolute privilege to be part of Spiritual Family. I've met some church planters out here who don't have that, and man, it's hard because they just have to make their own relationships, and all kind of it feels tenuous. And but I got family, not like all over the United States, and like you said at the top of this thing, that we've got a global family as well that we relate to and draw strength from and encourage as well. So yeah, so but being in Denver it's a massive change. I'm a suburb guy. I grew up in the suburbs. I was pastoring a church in the suburbs I grew up in. I remember reading an article online about the call for church planters in the United States to go to urban centers, and I was like, man, thank God somebody else is going to do that. I mean, I'm not even. I was, part of me was scared. Part of me was intimidated. Wasn't really sure. I was like, man, thank God I've got my like safe suburb life established for me. Man, I didn't know that was really the beginning of God calling me to go to an urban center to plant a church in a city I didn't know.
Yeah.
Growing up in the East Coast, the West culture is very different from East Coast culture. We draw heavily from the DC culture in Northern Virginia. Everybody's either a government contractor or works directly for the government. And out here in Colorado, people don't want to know when they ask, what do you do? They don't mean what's your job. They mean, what's your hobby? It's just a totally different space, just a different way of living life and different values and priorities. So it's been wild.
Yeah.
It's been wild.
And this will be your first time to Oregon coming up, right?
I cannot wait. Yeah, this will be my first time that far west.
We're gonna have to show you around. It's gonna be a couple fast-paced days.
Baptize me all the way into West Coast culture, Pacific Northwest at that.
Pacific Northwest culture. Yeah, that depends on the year as to what that exactly entails, but we'll do our best.
Makes sense. Is there anything I need to particularly wear?
Bergenstocks
Flannel?
with wool socks would probably be a good start.
Fantastic. I'll get my uniform together.
There you go. Get your uni together. Just Pinterest it, man. I'm sure you'll come up with it.
That's what I'll do.
Oh goodness. Well, again, just getting to know you a little bit. What's the best vacation you have ever been on, like non-work related? Because I know sometimes we kind of combine work stuff.
Yeah, I knew this question was coming, and I think I it was I think my answer is what's a vacation? I we got married in college and had kids right away, man. I like so no,
Maybe
I
we need to
think
say, what's
every
your favorite trip, right? Because
yeah,
once you have kids, it's not a vacation,
exactly,
it's a
because there's
trip.
no such thing as a vacation. We make a lot of memories, but there's not
Yes.
much vacating, because we're still in mom and dad mode when we go on trips. Um, we took this one trip uh, down the East Coast, and we got stuck from getting back into Northern Virginia because of snow. They got dumped on, man. They got like a foot of snow, and so we were like, well, let's just slow down our trip. And so we took our time, and we stayed in South Carolina a little bit, and then North Carolina. We went to aquariums and just kind of lived it up. And so it wasn't even as much about the destination. It was the first time in a very long time when that happened. We weren't racing to get back to a Sunday morning because we couldn't. And
Hmm.
so kind of we had been on this routine where, I mean, I had missed a Sunday in probably 10 years, and we weren't going to make it back, and they were going to have to cancel church. And it was like, okay, so we have to we get to slow down, we have to slow down, kind of maybe a marriage of those two realities at the same time. And so it was like I felt permission to exhale, and
Hmm.
that made it so much easier to relate to the kids, made it so much easier to relate to Megan. It made the time on 995, which is the major interstate on the East Coast, um, more palatable because I wasn't racing anybody. I was just we could just take our time, and that was remarkable. And so I think that would be the best trip we took, maybe the best vacation we took as
No,
well.
that's cool, man. There's probably a lesson slash some advice wrapped in there for us young parents, young families as well, right? Like just we can often plan these big moments, but it's often in the unplanned, in the forced slowdowns where a lot of those sweet memories and where some realization
Yeah.
comes. It's like,
Yeah, I mean, this one hotel we stayed in, I mean, it was disgusting. It was like because we just had to stop, and it was a very uh very great chain of hotels, but our particular hotel smelled like cigarette smoke, marijuana, and curry. And so it was like not like subtle curry, but like maybe there was a curry factory that moved out of our room right before we got there.
that's
And
intense.
so it was a lot of smells, and it was it was kind of crazy. But man, we played board games, and we laughed, and we giggled, and we watched, you know, movies, and just kind of it was just an excuse to slow down and make the most of a moment. And it was really special for us. By the way, I
That's
love
awesome.
curry. Not a
Curry,
fan
curry.
of a room smelling like
Right. Did
old.
that ruin that for you for a bit after that? Like
It did.
just
I did stay away for a minute. I was like, I
yeah,
think I think I've had enough.
I think we're good on
I
the
think
pause of curry for a sec. So your response, will say, to that kind of warrants another question. Do you tend to just be a pure grinder, like you're just going, you don't stop? Is that like kind of how you and your family rolls? You just always going, or do you kind of have some rhythms in that? Or you like, yeah, just curious about that.
yeah, I love the name. I love the word rhythm. I think that um, my rhythm is to push really, really hard for a long period of time, and then I'll I do it in intervals, right? But maybe like a like a 3 to 1, like a grind to rest ratio, right? So I'll go 3 to 5 weeks super hard, and then I'll take a week that's a little bit softer, and kind of regather and replan the next charge. It's not even a rhythm I was aware of for a lot of my life. And then we were probably about 8 years into our marriage before Megan revealed to me that was a rhythm that I was constantly following. Um, because we were talking one night, and I was like, "Hey, I think I'm gonna leave the house tomorrow pretty early." So sometimes I'll leave the house at 5 o'clock in the morning to get into the office and just go. but I had been
Mm.
going in a little bit late, and I was like, "Hey, just so you know, I'm going in early tomorrow." She goes, "Oh, I know it's coming." I was like, "What do you mean?" She said, "Oh yeah, this is your rhythm. This is how you do things. This is your pace. This is your
Mm.
cadence. You go hard, and then you kind of refill, and then you go hard again." Megan, on the other hand, Megan is a boss lady, man. She is extraordinary and has tremendous drive and is incredibly consistent. So where I do intervals, she's just on rails, man. She just goes, and
That's good.
it's inspiring to watch. It's intimidating, but super inspiring. And so a lot of my motivation is just trying to keep up with her.
Yeah.
I want to fulfill the call of God, but man, I got to keep up with my wife.
I don't want to fall behind.
Exactly. I
Oh.
don't want to lose. Um, Part of the reason we go in early, though, when we go in early, is so that we can get time with our kids in the evening. Yeah, that's something that we really appreciate, that we really enjoy. Trying to have as many meals with them as we can. Trying to get to their soccer, like get them to soccer practice or swim practice or whatever it is. So because we have the flexibility to choose when we're going to work, sometimes we make the decision to go in very early. Sometimes we make the decision to work very late. But we do try and maximize the flexibility that we do have. And again, that's something that Megan is. She's an extraordinary architect of finding those moments and kind of um, defining a season and figuring out how to squeeze the juice out of every
Yeah.
corner of the calendar. She's
It's a
really good at
Mac.
that. Yeah,
Awesome. So you said you grew up in a Christian church planting household. What
yeah,
did it look like for you to discover and pursue your own relationship with Jesus, and how'd that come about in the midst of all that?
yeah. I love that question. I love thinking about this because for me, uh, my parents made loving Jesus appealing, and I think that's maybe the most maybe that's the first thing that they did for me,
Yeah.
was to help me um, anticipate a life where I could know Jesus, where I could know God, and I could walk with Him. Um, there was no shortage of difficulty in my upbringing, in our home. Different seasons that were dark and difficult and painful for everybody in different kinds of ways. So it's not like it was like a happy-go-lucky, like Ned Flanders, no trouble reality, right? It was like there was real pain, there was real suffering, and there was real trouble. Um, there was real difficulty, but I could know God, right? And that was so exciting for me. That was an invitation and a possibility. It stuck so much with me that the way we describe uh, the invitation to follow Jesus at Hope Valley, we say to know, trust, and follow Jesus, because that's, I think, the most extraordinary invitation that any of us can be given. In terms of walking with Him, it has meant, because I did give my life to Jesus at a young age. It's been neat because at to follow Jesus at 6 years old looks a certain way, and then redeciding at 8 and 11, going into middle school, am I going to follow Jesus? Right? Am I gonna surrender my life to Him? And what does that surrender look like at that age is different than it looked when I was 6. And then 14 through 16, getting into high school and kind of becoming a man and establishing myself as a as an athlete in my school and being friendly, and whatever I was going to be, was I going to be defined by Jesus, or was I going to be defined by these others? So deciding again to follow Jesus, and um, you know catching some flack for that decision to follow Jesus and getting mocked a little bit, because my relationship with Jesus impacted my relationships. I chose not to date while I was in high school, and that's not a very popular decision. It wasn't even popular with me. I didn't like the decision, but it was a decision that I stuck with because I felt like at that time that's a way that I could honor God and follow Him in that season. And then choosing again to follow Jesus in college, as a freshman in college, getting out of the house and trying to carve your own path and figure out what's it going to look like. And then, you know, as a young married, okay, now I got to follow Jesus again, right? Now I have this
Mhm.
extraordinary gift that God's given me to sanctify me, and it's revealing all my weaknesses and insecurities and fears and doubts, and not what I expected from my marriage relationships. And so So I don't know how normal this is, but I've got a kid talking to me right now. So, hey, what's up? Okay, can you tell him that I'm on a phone call? Yeah, thank you. Say say daddy's on a phone call and the heater is by the front door. Okay, thank you. That's like the perfect picture of life. So I
Of
don't know if
life,
you're gonna let that, or we should just keep going. How do you want to handle that?
right? Let's just keep going. This real life, man.
Great. That's my life, man. That was my 8-year-old, just sweet as pie, eating a popsicle. It's like 3 degrees outside. Eating a popsicle. My so our associate pastor here, their power went out last night, and so he's going around gathering um, heaters so to heat his house. But all right.
Oh, man.
So I think I was saying it's like learning to follow Jesus in every season, right? So
Yeah.
as a young married, learning again to follow Jesus, then as a young parent, learning to follow Jesus, as a as a as a facility manager and operations manager for the church, and basically fancy titles for custodian. Um, you're like, what does it look like to follow Jesus? Uh, as a campus missionary, what does it look like to follow Jesus? As a church planter, it's still the same question. Will I follow Jesus and allow him to shape me and form me and um,
It's really good.
bend me to his will as he needs to? So, yeah,
Yeah. So in the midst of that journey of learning what it looks like to follow Jesus in different seasons, you've obviously had different kind of calls into ministry along your journey. And you've mentioned some of your titles and experiences along the way, but what did that look like for you being called into ministry? Did you just kind of grow up into ministry because of your proximity and your family's involvement? And it was just like, this is what it means to be in church? Or was there like a moment, like did discipleship yield it? What did that look like for you?
that's a great question. I think it's all of those things. Well, the one thing that was absent from my call to ministry was like a really emotional moment, right? So I went to student conferences for years. I went to my first student conference in I think 2000 or 1999 at Duke University. And,
Okay.
that's when I saw my first altar call to full-time campus ministry. And I saw these guys go up. I'm like, that's amazing. These men and women going up and just responding to the call to go into full-time ministry. And I was like, I want that.
Hmm.
And going back the next year and seeing it again and not not feeling particularly stirred, being like, man, I want that someday. And so I never responded to an altar call to full-time ministry. I didn't ever have a deeply um, uh, external moment per se, but really was just being invited into the work of ministry as a layperson, and realizing that um, while I have skills that can be used in other places, there my heart, my soul um, won't allow me to do anything else. Um, so um, so yeah, it was a progressive call that you know uh, Pastor Steve Merle in his book, The Multiplication Challenge, says you got to find. He's like, you look for people who are faithful, available, involved, teachable, and hungry. Um, and and one of the steps and one of the processes in that is an internship, impartation and internship, and that's really what I experienced. That book kind of captures my experience, and I think it was a more of an intuitive thing that Pastor Brett, Pastor Jim, and others brought me in through. They weren't working a system or a checklist. They were just, hey, David's available, and he
Hmm.
and he wants this, and let's invite him into the work, and let's give him a place. And I messed things up, man. I made so many mistakes. I jacked up a lot of things, and they expressed a lot of patience and a lot of grace and a lot of mercy. But I really, man, I was a just hell on wheels, man. It was like I was trying my best, but man, I messed up a lot of things, and they were really um, gracious uh,
Hmm.
toward me because they believe in discipleship, and
Yeah.
and that I mentioned that I interned with the youth ministry, and as a college student, we helped start a campus ministry, and then I got hired. My first job for the church was a janitor. Um, but while I was the janitor, I was running small groups and volunteering on Sunday mornings and just loving Jesus and trying to be a minister of the gospel. The transition to out of church operations into a campus ministry position um, came in 2009 2011, kind of crossfade between those times, but God broke my heart for the college campus, and I was like,
Mm,
I just gotta go. I can't I can do other things, but I can't do anything else. There are people who are lost and suffering under the weight of shame and guilt and insecurity and trying to figure out who they are, and I wanted to introduce them to Jesus. So
yeah.
um, yeah, and then it's just been the need has moved me from one place to another. Just the burden of God, not necessarily a sense of like I personally feel a call. It's I feel a burden. I feel a weight. I feel a responsibility for something, and talking to um, elders and my pastors and friends, and just kind of weighing that and praying through it. God's God's made the next door apparent every time.
Mm, that's really good. So, in the midst of your various experiences, what would you say is the most powerful move of God you've witnessed in your time following Jesus?
Man, I I don't know that I can separate out a single one.
Hmm.
I love every single time somebody surrenders their life to Jesus, like the real ones. The ones that stick. Like not fishing for a hand that's raised because somebody stirred a little bit, but like when somebody sees Jesus, decides to follow him for the first time, man, that blows me away every single time. I love baptisms. It blows me away every single time. It's so exciting. I've seen ministries grow really fast. I've seen. I was at Grace Covenant when it grew from several hundred to multiple thousands. Um, I saw campus ministry grow from 40 to 150.
Mm,
In a couple of years. So like I've seen things happen really fast, and that was exciting. But I've also seen God move really, really slow, and that was just as exciting and just as amazing. Um, I've seen God do things in big meetings that were remarkable, but man, I remember this one worship service with 14 college students that is probably unparalleled in terms of the things that God did in people's hearts. And so, it's all exciting. And when God is doing something, it's exciting, whether it's fast or it's slow or it's big or it's small. It's the same God. It's the same seed. It's the same gospel. It's the same kingdom, and it all gets me excited. It all
yeah.
gets me excited. So it's hard to draw out maybe a particular uh, any one moment over another. I love missions trips. Been on a bunch of them. But I love training for the missions trip. Right? It's not just being in country for 10 days, reaching um, non-Christians. It's the equipping that leads up to it is just as exciting, and then the time in city or in country is really exciting, and then the follow-up from that is really exciting. So I just love it when God is doing what he does, no matter how fast or how slow or what nation it is, or any of those kinds of things. It's all exciting.
Oh, that's cool,
you know
man.
Although the more I talk about it, maybe the most maybe the most profound things are when I've had the privilege of baptizing my own children.
Mhm.
Maybe that sticks out.
That probably
I,
sticks out.
maybe. So like it took me. I don't know how long it took me to answer that question, but but I think maybe baptizing my children
Hmm.
stands out among them uh, because they are um, my first ministry.
Yeah, well, that's really good. So this next question is it's got a potential add-on here, but I want to hear about just Denver and Hope Valley Church, just kind of demographics, what it's been like. You planted a church in the midst of a pandemic, super easy thing to do. There's a lot of literature about how to do that successfully. So
Yep. Yeah.
just want to hear about following all that, went for you. And have any other opportunities come out of that you can talk about, through like Google Ads and things like that. And so let's just kind of hear about what you got going on.
Yeah, I love how you teed up with the Google Ads. So I know what you want me to talk about. Um, so we moved here, and we were only here for 8 months before COVID really shut everything down. So we barely knew our way around the city, barely had a dry cleaner. Um, just we were really just beginning to put down roots. My kids were just starting to make friends in the school, and then everything shut down. And so that's been weird. It's kind of prolonged our ability or slowed down our ability to get to know our city. Um, One of the gifts that was in that is it kept me from just planting the church that I could plant, right? Having been in ministry for a whole bunch of years, I could just go recreate with the amazing people that God brought to Denver to help establish the church. We could have just recreated what we know and what we've experienced, and but God kind of disallowed that. He prohibited that. He stood in the way of us doing that, so that we could plant, I think, what is more the church that's on His heart for this
Mm,
city. It opened up our ears to listen better. It made it forced us to be more patient. Back to your question about pushing hard and stuff. Like it's not a matter of pushing harder. Um, it's a matter of lining up our effort with God's effort and working where He's working, and not just creating the result that we want. And that's been a humbling process. It's been difficult and slow, and in that way, absolutely beautiful.
mm,
To see people come to know, trust, and follow Jesus who didn't know Him pre-pandemic because we slowed down. I mean, the slowdown kept me from just focusing on Sunday morning. I had to meet my neighbors, right? Like I wish I was the kind of guy that was like, I want to know all of my neighbors, but really it was like I wanted the church to grow and to be amazing, and Sundays to be the primary thing. And when that God kind of put the brakes on that, it was like, okay, so now we're gonna be neighbors, and we're gonna love our neighbor.
mm,
I met a man named Jay Pathick. He's with Vineyard, and he wrote a book called The Art of Neighboring, and he and challenged my presuppositions, my assumptions about what it means to love our neighbor. He's like, do you even know your neighbor's names? Do you know what they do? Do you know what their hopes are, what their dreams are? And I was like, oh man, I don't know any of those things.
mm,
Uh, and I was trying to win the city, but I was looking past my neighbors, um, and so COVID was a gift to us in that way. Um, we had the privilege. Um, an amazing group of people came to Denver with us. An amazing group of people. God touched their heart, and they came to help establish the church. And that was in the midst of an otherwise very difficult moment. We had friendships. We had
mm,
we had deep friendships and sustaining friendships, and we were able to stand with each other and fight with one another and fight for one another, and pray and encourage one another. And so even though the brakes got put on in that regard, we still had each other, and that was amazing. That was beautiful. We got in the midst of COVID and everything else. Megan she got certified for Google Ads, and we got a grant for Google Ads, and it ran globally for a few days. so like church online or something like that ran globally for 3 days. And so for 3 days, or for a few weeks after that, we had all sorts of visitors from all over the world. And a few of those visitors um, stuck, right, and they became a part of our online community. We did our services through Zoom, and so we had a little small group afterwards, and we regathered in May 2021. That's why I'm using past tense. Um, but we met a man in Pakistan who was looking for relationship and discipleship, and loves God with his whole heart, but was just lonely. It's less than 2% of the population in Pakistan is Protestant. It's like 96% Muslim. And so being a Christian in a Muslim nation is a very different experience. For anybody who felt like they had it hard moving to Denver, uh, this put things in perspective for
Yeah.
us. And we've been building relationship with this man, and discipleship opportunities have opened up, and we've been with him able to serve the nation of Pakistan, providing resources to care for widows and orphans and slave children. And God is doing just some really amazing things through our relationships. And um, so not only did COVID allow for us to slow down and build according to his pattern for our city, it also gave us the opportunity to have a global impact, which was unexpected, unplanned, really out of order and backwards to everything that we had planned. Um, but pretty amazing nonetheless.
Yeah. That's awesome. Thanks, Google Ads.
Yeah, thank you, Google Ads.
So you mentioned that you kind of merged into Every Nation as a child through your, family's church. So maybe you didn't choose Every Nation, but you've chose to stay, right? And that's
Yeah.
been the case with many of the guys that we've interviewed in this. And so what is it about Every Nation, like your favorite thing that keeps you here, that makes this, as you plant a new church, you're planting an Every Nation church, what is it about the fam?
Bro, it's the fam. It's this. It's you, right? It's um, I think I've always loved it. I love the mission. I love the values. I love the call to be a Christ-centered, spirit-empowered, socially responsible church. I don't want to be another kind of church.
Mm.
I love our discipleship process. I love that it's a global family. I love that even if you never set foot in in another country, if you're giving generously to your local church, you're having a global impact, because our church is so into the global mission. And so we partner with um, men and women in creative access nations, and um, we are a part of God's kingdom being established and revealed all throughout the world,
Yeah.
without just by showing up and building with one another and giving generously. We like participate in that. So the thought that our little church here in Denver is having a global impact, that you know with the church in Eugene, Oregon is having a global impact, the church in Sterling, Virginia, the new church plant in Lexington, Kentucky is having a global impact just by existing. I mean, man, who gets to do that? I mean, that's wild, and that's amazing. So I love the mission. I love the vision. I love reaching college students. Man, it's like jet fuel on a congregation, to have college students around. Jet fuel on a worship experience. I love the priority on the next generation. I love that we're calling people into ministry. I love that ministry belongs to the minister, or to the members, not just to the pastor. I love that. Um, but for all of that I love, I think that if it was just all of that but without relationship, I wouldn't be here. It's that there are men, in my case, that I can confess sin to, that can pray for me and encourage me. And when I'm
Mm.
mad or sad or just um, frustrated, I can, man, I can call somebody up and say, man, I'm struggling. I'm afraid. There were times during COVID, man, I was straight afraid. Not afraid of COVID necessarily for me, but it's like, man, is this gonna work? I didn't plan for this. This wasn't. We didn't cover this at the boot camp.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it wasn't a part of my strategic plan. This was not my 3-year plan, right? It wasn't my 1-year plan. It wasn't our launch plan.
Yeah.
But I have relationship, and I can call people,
Mm.
and there's no shortage of people who would hop on a plane and come here in a hurry if I experienced significant difficulty. If I asked, I can think of no less than maybe 20 men that would be on a plane, um, because they love each other. They love me, and and I love them. And I know that that's not just my story. It's not just my experience, but it's the experience of many of the people. And so while I've prioritized men, I'm also excited that my wife has relationships that are deep and meaningful, and she's got the same kind of friends that could hop on a plane and come support her. They will. Um, 2021, man, I wept with some people.
Mhm.
I wept. I had friends make terrible mistakes, and I had friends experience tremendous loss. We wept on the phone together, and we fought together, and we're seeing people not just fall, but people get restored. We're seeing people not just experience pain, but experience comfort. And
Yeah.
I just, man, that's worth its weight in gold to me.
Yeah.
And so that you're not just this guy that I know at a conference, um, being hosted by a third person, and we just happened to meet each other, because we sat in the same section. But man, I'm going to see you at every cluster and every pastor's conference, and that I know the things that your people are going through, and we pray for you guys, and you pray for us. I mean, that's you can't fake that. You can't fake that. So
That's
that's
good.
why Every Nation for me.
It's really good, man. Appreciate your heart on that. So if people are wanting to follow your church and keep up to date with what's going on and all that fun stuff, where would they find you?
That's a great question. so, so we got a website. It's
Perfect.
hedenver.com.
Okay.
And so I'm actually, I know this is like so in bad taste. I just don't want to give you the wrong information. So I'm pulling up my phone right now, and I'm going to look up our handle on Instagram. The church has, we're on the gram,
You're on the
and
gram.
we are, and I think it's called just Hope Valley Church. I think we managed to nail that, but I didn't want to lie to you.
I think it
'Cause I
is
feel like
true. It looks like Casey looked it up and put it on the screen, so he's got your back.
oh, it's there. Has it been there that whole time? And I've just
I
been
mean,
talking.
just the
So
last like 10, 15 seconds.
so I was looking down, so trying to figure that out. So yeah, at Hope Valley Church on Instagram. So
Perfect.
and we got some cool things that we put out there. Nothing at this scale. I mean, this is the stuff I dream of being able to do. But we put out playlists, everyone, like music playlists, um, music to listen to, things that are going on, updates, um, inspiring words. We're getting ready to do the Abide Fast with you guys, and so we'll be doing all of that. And but yeah, so if you wanna know what's going on, at Hope Valley Church on Instagram. Um,
Hope Valley
just like
Church.
I said.
And your personal viral TikTok channel is
Yeah, oh, yeah. That's Groovy Pastor 367. No, I'm just kidding. So, I'm on Instagram, but I don't use it. Yeah, I'm not good at Instagram. I post every once in a while, mostly when people are visiting Hope Valley. I'm like, hey, it's great to have them here.
yeah,
I think
no, I
about
hear
getting
you.
better at it, but I'm not good at it.
About 3 times a year, influencer Chris comes out and posts on Instagram, so yeah.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, I'm grateful for you being with us, man. Do you have any somewhat short parting words, encouragements, anything you'd like to share before we wrap up?
No, I can't wait to be with you guys. I'm really looking forward to just spending time with you, but getting to see your people in person. I've been
Yeah,
watching online for a while, just kind of tracking you guys and praying for you. It'll be fun to be there in person. So thank you for the opportunity to be here. You all are doing incredible things, and looking forward to being
appreciate
together.
appreciate that. January 23rd, 10:30 a.m. at Grace City, Eugene. Pastor David Hermes will be bringing the word. So if you're watching this, set aside that Sunday, come hear the man in person. It'll be great. So we thank you for your time, David. It's always great being with you. And for those of you watching, thank you for this time. Just tuning in with us. We pray this encourages you, that you can get to know Pastor David and just about their ministry a little more. And hopefully you get to meet him in person here in a couple of weeks. So thanks for tuning in to the Meet the Family podcast, and we'll see you next time.